drive-throughs used to scare me because once you're in, you can't just get out. Well, at least the one that I was at. I'm stuck between like the speaker and the window and cars in between. So I can't go anywhere. I started to panic. It's like, now I really want to leave. So I'm feeling the tunnel vision, the heart pounding, feeling like I can't breathe, right? Starting to feel really hot. And then something just clicked. I just told myself, like, you're good. My name is Stefanie. I live in East Providence, Rhode Island. And I joined the program in August of 2024. So it's been how long now?
9 months, I'm guessing.
Yeah, but I finished the program about a month and a half ago. I lose track now, right? Because anxiety's not on my mind anymore.
It's awesome. I figured as much, and I'd love to hear more about that. But I always find it's a good sign if people aren't that active anymore, and they just, because just now you're like, can we do it half an hour later? And I'm like, yes, that's a good sign. That's brilliant, because you're focusing on life again. You're busy.
I know.
And let's go back to August, I guess, of last year. Just before you started. Can you tell us a bit about your situation before you found the program?
God, yeah, it was bad. Like, I think about it sometimes about, when I'm out doing things and it does pop in, right? Like, wow, last year it was awful. I wasn't even leaving the house. So it was in August. I was scrolling on Facebook and I came across the ad that you had. You were really talking about what it feels like. And it was kind of like a mini course, but it was like a 20-minute video explaining the anxiety. So I'm like, this is kind of a long ad, but it makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm like, okay. And the more I listen to it, I'm like, wow, he's in my head. Like, so it interests me, right? Because I'm like, I'm going through this right now.
How did anxiety show up for you personally?
It was just panic attacks. I became afraid of everything. And I know I think it was triggered by, life events that were happening and just a lot of things. I was very overwhelmed. But then when I started feeling the symptoms, it became something else, right? Because now I'm focusing on all the symptoms. I'm afraid of them. I'm like, what is happening to me? Why is my heart always racing? Why can't I breathe? Why am I dizzy all the time? Why am I afraid of the world? That I was never like that, afraid of driving far from the house, leaving the house because my house became my safe zone. Just always wondering if even when I was home, it became scary. Is anyone else around in case I have a panic attack? Is there anyone else around? Are my neighbors home? Just in case I have to call them or let them know that I think I'm dying.
Yeah.
Right.
How did that feel in general? Being in that situation, being at home and not being able to do what you wanted to do.
It was awful because I'm like, is this my new normal? Because if it is, I can't live like this. I have kids. And that also made me feel like crap because I felt like I was present, but not fully present because my kids wanted to do things, or I found myself over fixating on my symptoms that I was afraid to do anything. I mean, going outside, running around, and now my heart racing instead of matching the two, like, this is because I'm running and I'm playing and having a good time. It's like, oh my gosh, it turns into a panic attack and I'm like, anything I do turns into a panic attack.
Yeah.
So I felt like honestly, like my whole life was just crumbling. Friends, family, children, everyone was kind of suffering because I needed more help. Like, I didn't need their help, but at the time it was like I needed their help because now I was like almost not functionable. I just wanted to lay down all day. That's what felt safe to me and do nothing.
And
Um,
how did they help you in ways?
they helped me by like taking the kids because I felt overwhelmed. Just like looking back at it now, it's crazy. Like I think like, wow, that was bad. Like it was bad. But, if they're playing or making a lot of noise, it became overwhelming or taking them to school, driving them because I'm afraid to drive, you know. Um, uh, I just couldn't take on everything that I was always taking on, if that makes sense. I'm a mom, I own a business. I'm a single mom on top of that. And it's like what I always did was taking on everything, which is normal to be overwhelmed by those things. But the anxiety and the panic attacks brought it to this level that was unbearable because my mind couldn't focus on what I had to do. It was now just focused 100% of the time on feeling for all my symptoms, checking in with myself, making sure that I'm okay. Um, and then I did feel good, but then it was like going back, like, but am I?
Mhm.
It was just awful. So I was going back to that. I saw that ad about the anxiety loop, and I'm like, wow, this makes total sense. And it was crazy because after that, I didn't get a panic attack for a long time because I kept replaying that video in my head about how the anxiety loop works and what I'm doing to trigger it. So I'm like, I remember calling my sister and I'm like, there's this program, look at it. And I showed her, I told her where to go. And she looked at it and she's like, oh, do you think, because my sister was like my biggest supporter, but she also made me push myself. It wasn't like, oh, you're anxious to stay home by yourself. Cool. Let me come over and make you feel safe. She was like, I'm not going because you're fine and you're going to be fine. And so like, but she was literally and still is my biggest supporter. Um, she helped me. She was my safe person, but like a testy safe person. She
Yeah.
was like, no, like if I drove and she was like, and I'm like, all right, we're driving somewhere and I'm like having a panic attack. I think I'm just going to turn around because in my head, it was unsafe to keep going.
Yeah.
And if I kept going, I was going to die.
Yeah.
So I'm like, I'm going to turn around because in my mind, if I turned around, now I'm safe. And she was like, nope, keep going. You're almost there. Just nothing is going to happen. I promise you. You're in your head. You're letting anxiety take over. Like she would push me to do it. So I found that was like super, super helpful. But I told her about the program and she was like, well, if you think it's going to work, because I tried other things. If you think it's going to work, I mean, what's another program? And I was like, okay, I'm just going to try it. And it was super affordable. I had someone just a few weeks before that with ads and they didn't talk any costs or whatever. And I'm like, okay, this is a good approach. And then I actually had a call with them and they were like, yeah, for $3,000, let me, pay that today and we'll get started. And I'm like, that just sounds like a lot. That made me more anxious because I'm like, we're not in a place, at least I'm not in a place in the world right now where I can just throw $3,000 and take a chance. And all I've seen is how you're helping other people, but you spoke to me like you were speaking my language.
Yeah.
And exactly everything that I was going through. So I'm like, I'm willing to try this. And then the cost, I remember telling her when I was almost done that this is worth the 3,000. I was like, this program is worth way more. So it's clearly not about the money for you.
No, it isn't. Just going back, this beautiful. Just going back 2 steps. What were some of the other things that you tried besides obviously this program? The things you tried before.
I tried yoga, meditating, and those are still good. I still do them, but for other reasons now. Distraction as like games on my phone that I download and say like, oh, when I'm feeling anxious or feel like I'm about to have a panic attack, I'm gonna play this game. Never works.
Yeah.
because you're playing the game and you're still focusing on your heart pounding
Mhm.
and like not breathing. Medication, therapy. I I felt like I tried everything. And it's weird because you get when at least when I tried to look up what was happening to me, I mean, the, you said it all in your course. You explained it all. Like what happens in your body, why it happens, parts of the brain and why it's firing off. And it's like, I would have spent the rest of my life trying to get these little tiny pieces of everything that was happening. And I don't think I would be where I am now if I honestly, where I am now if I hadn't joined. Because you cram, it's like it's so much information, but you cram it all into the program in the different sections and the way it flows is like perfect.
You know, as an ex-participant of the program, that the goal of the program is to be okay with anxiety, not to get rid of it. Just getting rid of anxiety, of the severity of it or the symptoms. That is the result of being okay. But I used to have that, and you have that as well. Had that when the goal used to be getting rid of it, no, not feeling symptoms, avoiding them, distracting yourself, finding them, doing all these kinds of things, right? But you might still be nervous. You might still have some anticipatory anxiety or symptoms even. Like I get them rarely, but sometimes I'm stressed out. And
Yep.
yes, the symptom that used to remind me of anxiety comes up again. Or as you said, you're exercising and your body, your heart rate goes up, right?
Yep.
That can remind you, like memory of panic attack. But so that doesn't mean that for anyone's listening, it doesn't mean that anxiety is gone, which is fear. You know, the emotion of fear isn't gone. We're not taking that away from you, right? That's not possible. It's just that you know how to respond to it. As you say, Stefanie, you just, and in this case, you reminded yourself of, you know what to do when it shows up. And I think that is also why, to relate back to why do we need this program, in my opinion, and of which you are an example. And I used to be that as well, going through it myself, not the program, but the journey on which I based my program. Obviously, it's just because it's a skill. It's something we got to keep practicing, and there's some pitfalls here and there. You probably know about the acceptance trap of, hey, this works, so I'm going to use it to, to not have panic, and then you still get it because you're resisting it in disguise.
Right.
And so it's very, very good that you mentioned that, because I do feel that there's a very valid thing to kind of worry about, so to speak, or just ask yourself, do I need all of that? And 16 weeks can sound a little bit overwhelming. Just can you tell me a little bit about the experience you had going through those weeks? That you make progress all the time? Was there something that you have any I don't know, hard times through it? That you have boosts? How did it feel for you going through those 16 weeks?
Yeah, it was great. The beginning was awesome, very motivating. I'm like, I'm ready. I almost want to say I felt healed because I was so like motivated and I'm like, I got this. I would say though, and I did speak to like a few other people in the community. I'm like, does anyone else feel like this? I did notice between week, I want to say like 9 or week 10 and 12, that's really like where it tests you, where you feel like you're falling back, or like, back to the beginning.
Nothing worked.
I'm like, all that, it's like, this is not going to work because we're near the end.
Yeah.
So why am I feeling like this right now? And it was like a 2-week, maybe 2.5 week
I remember
stretch for me. Yeah. And I remember asking, like, is anyone else? And it was like, it kind of isn't like a pattern with everyone else kind of feeling it within those weeks. But really, and I believe it is your mind kind of playing with you, like, can I let go a little bit? Yeah. Like, you are safe, right? You got this. And at the time, it was like, I really felt like crap. Like, I feel, am I back at square one? But as much as it felt awful for those 2.5 weeks for me, that was like what I needed, if that makes sense.
Mhm. That makes total sense. Yeah, because it's also in at the beginning of the program. I think I mentioned the word setback here and there as part of the
It
when
is.
we
Yeah.
when we look at the journey. It's part of it, and it's not something we want. And it is easy to kind of go like, oh yeah, we'll have setback near the end. But when you actually get one, whether you
Yeah.
call it setback or whatever you want to call something else, it actually is very scary, frustrating, annoying, and as you said, you kind of identify where it happened, including this happened for more people in the community at around the same time, and that is actually around just before the end of the journey for yourself, not necessarily the program, but just the journey. It tends to do that because your anxious brain, your amygdala, your survival brain, its one job is to keep you safe. And you're, instead of thinking positively, instead of distracting, instead of telling yourself you're okay, whatever, you're showing your nervous system and the survival brain that you are. So it's kind of letting go a little bit. But exactly as you say, before you get to the final stretch, it just wants to make sure, like, am I really? So it might throw you a symptom you've always had. For example, you always had panic. Now you get an intrusive thought, or now you get heart palpitation. Now you get something completely different. I've had
Yeah.
that. And then you're like, oh, this shit doesn't work. French. You're like, this stuff doesn't. I need to try something else. You get the shiny object syndrome and everything. No, we gotta keep focused on the 5 steps and
Yeah.
the plan. But it is a very tough place to be. But also, it means like setbacks are meant to be celebrated because it means that you've grown. Because otherwise, you wouldn't fallen back. You wouldn't set back to a place where you used to be or whatever. Like you're not worse off, probably. You just feels like you're at the place where you started or whatever. But you can only get back there if you've made progress, and it shows that your, I guess, the story in your brain and the anxiety itself, or the nervous system, whatever you want to call it, is playing with the idea of kind of fully believing you and embracing the fact that you're safe. But it's just kind of like, as you said, testing you. Yeah, so that makes it
Yeah.
makes sense. What did you do to get through that, and how did it feel afterwards?
Well, at the time, it was difficult, right? Because I'm like, what is this? What is this new setback? What is this? What are these new symptoms? And why am I having them? But then I actually went back to some of um the lessons to kind of just to replay them, to refocus and know that, because I noticed that I was getting in my head. I'm like, oh no, this isn't going to work or whatever it was. So I went back and listened to some of the different courses that you had that I felt I needed, like intrusive thoughts. You had bonus videos and a lot of like the initial one, the anxiety loop. So I could just be like, okay, hold on a second. He mentioned on like the steps, one of them are setbacks. I forgot what step that was for, maybe. I don't know. One of them is setbacks. So I'm like, all right, this is normal. And also it was helpful in the Facebook page, the community, to know that it wasn't just me. We were all feeling it in within those weeks. Some started at week 10, some started at week 9, but it was between 9 and like 12 that, and mine was like more week 10 to 12. It was like a 2 week where I was like, but I was like, okay,
Got some people
yeah,
that right now that need to hear this, because
yeah,
as you said, it really helps to know you're not alone, and this isn't something, this isn't you doing something wrong, right? Because
right,
people have that worry. I get that, of like, am I missing something? Am I doing this wrong? Why is it not XYZ? And
right.
so that makes total sense that it helps, and I'm really glad that you found that to be helpful as well. And in terms of the rest of your journey, how what one of the biggest breakthroughs that you had that you remember?
I don't take any safety things with me anymore. That's a big one. Driving.
I remember you telling me a story in one of our calls about going through the drive-through. I don't know if that's like the biggest example you have of crushing your fear of driving. You may have others, but
That was
I'm
that was at the time. At the time, yes. Now I'm a drive-through and I'm fine. I'm just like I'm just relaxed. I'm just listening to the music. I have the windows down. It's not raining or snowing. Now I'm just relaxing. And it's funny because it doesn't even become a thought.
yeah.
Like you brought it up and it reminded me.
Can you tell
Right?
me? Can you tell us that story? Just
Yeah, yeah.
right through.
So yeah, I was in it was the McDonald's drive-through. I don't know if I can say McDonald's, not
Yeah.
sponsoring it, but we were at my daughter wanted, the ice cream cone from McDonald's and I got like a drink and stuff. And we wanted to go through drive-through. So I'm like, okay, like this is a good drive-throughs used to scare me because once you're in, you can't just get out. Well, at least the one that I was at. Some drive-throughs, it's open, right? And the parking lot is attached. You can get out. Those I always love. But this specific one it's closed in. I mean, it's a road and then there's bushes. So I knew once I'm in this drive-through, I have to stay in it. And if anyone knows, McDonald's is always like busy, so you have to wait. So I ordered our stuff and I went through the drive-through and now I'm stuck. I'm stuck between like the speaker and the window and cars in between. So I can't go anywhere. I started to panic.
Yeah.
I felt very trapped. Very and then of course, panicking, it's like now I really want to leave.
Yeah.
I really want to get out of this drive-through. I want to feel free again. So I'm feeling the tunnel vision, the heart pounding, feeling like I can't breathe, right? Starting to feel really hot. And then I something just clicked. I just told myself, like, you're good. You're good. Like, it's just a drive-through. I just were telling myself, like, you're fine.
Sorry, did you use any of the 5 steps that you learned while in the car?
Yes. I actually put it in my head. So like Rodeo Drive, like in California.
Like in Los Angeles, you mean?
Yes. So in order for me to remember it, I did like Rodeo, like in my head, like the 5 steps.
Yeah.
Like recognize it. That's how I was able to like remember it. So yes. And I didn't want to really freak out because I didn't want to freak out my daughter because she's just thinking she's getting ice cream and it wasn't meant to be
But
that
that puts more pressure on you, doesn't it? Because you're worried about one, not being able to leave. You want to leave, but also and all the other things you might feel or worry about, but also not freaking out your daughter, which is adding more pressure to,
Right.
getting rid of anxiety, getting rid of panic, right?
Yeah. And that was another reason that I forgot to mention that I really wanted to join. Like I didn't want my kids growing up like remembering me like this. Right? Like mom couldn't do anything. Mom always had panic attacks. Mom couldn't drive us anywhere. Anything mom did, she got a panic attack. So I'm like, I didn't want obviously to tell her, even though she's 15, I didn't want to tell her. So I'm like, I'm just replaying that. I'm like, okay, I'm recognizing that it's anxiety because I already knew when I was ordering that I would be stuck. And I already knew that between after I ordered, before I'm at the window, that there was going to be a moment that I would be trapped.
And you knew that did you expect panic to show up at that point, or was it kind of out of the blue fee?
No, I expected it. In the back of my mind, I knew if I was stuck and the cars in front of me didn't pay and drive away, and if I had to be there, that I would panic. No, and that's why I was able to going through the steps. I was like, all right, you kind of expected this. You didn't plan for it, but you expected it.
Mm-hmm.
Clearly anxiety, nothing is happening. You knew that, that you don't like to feel stuck. You hate drive-throughs. So I just had to tell myself. And then eventually, I mean, it all happened so fast, but eventually, yeah, there was like a car in front of me. I'm just waiting for our stuff. And I felt myself calming down.
Just correct me if I'm wrong. I remember you said back then that you tried a different technique. I don't remember which one it was again, but we've got the so what technique, right? As a diffusion as step three.
Oh,
Uh,
give me more.
yeah, I think you either tried the paradox intent, the bring it on, or you did the and then. Doesn't really matter for now, but I remember
I
you.
did the and for the drive through at that time. I did the and then.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I was like I said, it was all in my head, like
Mm,
so fast because I was truly panicking.
mhm.
Like I was at the point, I don't know if anyone else felt like this during their panic attacks. You know, like you feel like you're gonna pass out. I felt like I am going to pass out and this is gonna be bad. So I was like, I was really panicking. It was very scary for me. But I did. So knowing that like, okay, you knew that you were gonna feel this way. But like at the same time, I'm like, okay, like I'm having this, and then what's going to happen? And then I'm going to wait here. And then what's going to happen? Nothing. You're going to feel uncomfortable and it's going to be your turn. Grab your stuff and we're going to get it. And then what? And then we're going to get the stuff and we're going to start driving home. And then so yeah, it was like I used so many different techniques that I've learned from the program all in that one moment. But yes, the and then was really what helped.
And how did
Even though I recognized and I knew that I would panic between that moment, it was at that moment, now remembering, it was the and then that got me through it.
I really like that. I really like that example. And for anyone listening who's got no idea what we're talking about, these are part of the responding correctly, which is done in 5 steps. And for some of these steps, there's like more techniques, which is the diffusion step. That's like you can do the so what, you can do the and then you can ask yourself, is it helpful? You can do many of these things. And you, Stephanie, I remember that. That's why I remember that story. You decided to, I guess, I'm just kind of saying these words. I don't know if you relate, but you were kind of I remember you said something about, just being curious, I guess. I don't know if that's the word you use, but you tried a different technique and just see how it went. And I always really like that because I'm like, eventually it's so good where you get to the point where you have this tool belt and you decide at each moment to try a different one. And you've got the one you like best. I've got the one that I used to use all the times. But there's more in the program that you can pick from, showing yourself that you kind of, play around with anxiety a little bit and see
Yep.
what it does. And obviously there's acceptance and that's like the biggest part of the steps. And that's what you do when you kind of go through this and you're like, I'm not going to go out of the car. I'm not going to fight this. I'm not going to continue in that loop of thinking what ifs, No, you're just going to go and then I'll be home enjoying my ice cream with my daughter, also celebrating the fact that I can drive again. Kind of, even though, and this is also for anyone listening who has got no idea what we're talking about, it's because basically the way to recover is through anxiety. It's doing things anxious. It's doing things not without a plan necessarily. You got to know how to respond correctly. You got to know what anxiety is, as Stephanie explained, like the anxiety loop. You've got to, because that really helps you to apply the right response if you understand what it is, if you don't get freaked out. Because if you don't know that you're not going to pass out, or if you don't know you can drive while having panic, you're not going to do it, and you're not going to allow yourself to have that panic. You got to know that you're safe, even though it's uncomfortable, it's unpleasant, and it feels scary. It feels real. The symptoms feel real. It doesn't mean you're in danger. So that really helps um, to apply the right response. And this is also why we do these things. And Stephanie mentioned exposure later in the program, where we really go out and face anxiety, not to teach us how to be anxious, but to teach us how to respond to anxiety. But we can only do that in the moment. Healing comes from feeling is something I heard like a few months ago. I love that phrase, healing comes from feeling, because you got to feel anxiety,
Yeah.
not make stuff worse, but just feel it and respond in the right way. We've got the 5 steps, we've got all these techniques, and then going through that and then kind of relating back and say, oh, I did this. No one else did this. You didn't brought any safety behavior. Your sister wasn't there with you, even though she's been great support, and you've got to have those people in your life. It's massively important. It's not meditation that did it, even though meditation is not a bad thing. Yoga is not a bad thing. These things aren't bad, but it's you solely you internally and by learning and by applying that shows you that you can do. Because how did you feel after applying that? What happened? Did you get more panic, less panic? What happened? Did you get stuck, or were you able to go home? What was the experience for you? What's the conclusion?
I felt great because for once I felt like I was in control in a way. And I agree with that, right? Like we have to feel it.
Yes.
My thing was I didn't want to feel it. We don't want to feel it because it doesn't feel good. It feels awful. It feels like we're dying. At least for me, I'm like, okay, I am now going to die. I'm having a heart attack, a stroke, something's happening. My mind always went there. So I didn't want to feel it. But what I realized in the program, especially those little things like going to the drive-through, driving, going over another bridge on purpose, going on the highway on purpose, I realized I need to feel it to show myself that nothing happens. Because once my mind can speak to my body to say, okay, you're going to feel this, but nothing is going to happen, that's when I started being less and less afraid of things. I had to. And I could listen to the entire program, use everything, but I really had to go do it.
Yes.
Just listening to it was not helpful. I had to apply what you were telling us, what you were teaching us that, we had to do, especially those exposures when we were ready.
Mm-hmm.
And I had to do it. Super uncomfortable. But the first time is like, I can't do this. I can't do this. And you're forcing it. But the more times I did it, you don't think about it, And honestly, it's not just one thing that worked for me, which was the and then. It actually, I used all of them.
Mm-hmm.
It all depended how I felt, what was the first one that popped up, and what felt right to me at the time. Other days I would use like, so what, and talk shit to it.
Mm-hmm.
Or there were other days that I'm like, give me more, bring it on.
Mm-hmm.
It all depended on what I was feeling, what I was doing.
Yeah. And you're 100% right on, because that is you, and this is also why I always like credits to you, right? Because I'm like, I wish I could. I don't really wish it, to be honest. I'm thinking I wish I could take away people's anxiety. I would charge $3,000, probably more, 30 grand, just to do it and be a millionaire.
And we'd pay it.
But it's not as valuable. And it's not possible, obviously, but also it's not as valuable because now you've shown yourself that you can handle one of the biggest problems. It's not, if not the biggest problem, it was for me anyways, potentially even bigger than, the grief over my mother and everything. That is, if I think about the darkest times of my life, it isn't even the grief and losing my mother and stepdad. It's actually anxiety that was much worse in a way. And then, it's kind of hard to kind of compare, but how I felt in general was way worse going through anxiety. Yeah. And now that I got through it, you got through it, Stefanie, knowing that you did this yourself. And yes, I just used to be the guy that the ad that popped up and you signed up to. You could have gone with the other guy. There's more people doing this, obviously, which is great. But it's you watching the videos and then going out and applying it and taking, getting to that mindset shift. We always talk about this. This is the goal, that getting to that mindset shift of where you don't really care about anxiety symptoms any longer, because we know you cannot get rid of anxiety. So that's a good segue to the next question is, Stefanie, where are you now? And actually, I'm really curious because I haven't spoken to you in a while. What's going on?
I just back to normal, what I call my normal.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel bad because I'm not as active anymore on the, the community, but, I want to be. But it's like I've been doing so great that my business ended up growing. So now, like, I'm more focused on other things. And I do pop in, right? And I leave little messages and stuff. But it truly is. It's like, or someone asks a question and I can relate, right? Because that's how I felt. Like I had that too. This is what I did. Or
you can help now rather than you're not looking for stuff.
Right.
Adding value back.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
love that you don't have to in any way feel bad about not being as, because I saw that, I noticed that, and I'm always, and I said this in the Q&A we did last week. I'm like, I hope to see you guys again and a couple of more times, and I don't want to see you guys again. Obviously I do. I want to keep in touch. But it's like the more we stay in everything, the more we
Yeah.
keep our heads revolving around anxiety, talking about it, doing
Yeah.
Googling.
It's all you think about.
Yes,
It's all
that,
you think about.
and we keep ourselves trapped until we get to that mindset shift of where we just, I don't really care anymore. I don't get the symptoms anymore as a result of not caring. And I actually want to focus on my business as you've been doing, which is so like, that's the way, that is recovery. That's how it looks.
Yeah. And it's funny because I was speaking to someone and they were like actively having a panic attack, like internally. And they like didn't want to say anything. And they ended up just saying like, oh, I'm sorry. I just don't feel good. And I'm like, oh, what's wrong? And they were having like an active panic attack. I could see it because I just feel like I can relate.
Yeah.
I know what it looks like when you're trying to hide it. But they told me, and I was able to calm them down in a way that they've never imagined. And it wasn't until like later that I'm like, huh, interesting.
Just got the chill. You said that. That's
calm myself down.
yes.
Now I'm helping someone else. So that's why, like, I really do. I want to be more active because I know what that's like. I know what it's like to be in wherever they are in their journey.
Yes.
I know what that feels like, and it's not fun. And my sister again was like, she's like, oh, she was really overwhelmed with some stuff, and she was like, no, I feel like I'm gonna have a panic attack. And my response was like, you're okay. You're gonna be okay. And it was very calm. It was very like, and I'm like, just focus on what you're doing. Don't worry. I know your heart's probably racing, and I know you're having a hard time breathing, but you're gonna be okay. And then she paused, and she goes, but you couldn't give yourself advice. I was like, I couldn't at the time, but now I can. So it's funny because like I'm helping other people now, but yet I'm still getting it, right? Because it doesn't go away. When things get stressful, it's like, okay. But now it's just that.
You get a symptom. You still get a symptom occasionally when it's stressful?
Of course. I mean, I think that's normal. I think my body is supposed to be doing that.
I agree.
Where before I hated it. I hated when my body was giving me the normal symptoms it's supposed to give me. But now I just know, and a lot of it too is good. Like, okay, you've worked enough today. This is your body's way of saying like, all right, it's just time to shut down. It's tired.
Are you able to use it now as, I think I mentioned it in a program. I say, for me, it's now a guard dog. I don't know if that's a good kind of way to put it.
Oh, yeah.
When I've been avoiding things or working too much. I need to fix something in my life, or at least face something in my life, like financial. I've had some issues there. I've had relationships and everything. There's always stuff going on in life. As for me now, it's like a guard dog. I can appreciate the symptom because it tells me, oh, my stress bucket is full. Is that the case for you as well? Yeah, you say, yeah.
Yes. Yeah. And I really feel like it helps me refocus.
Yeah.
It says like, okay, let me take a minute. What's going on? And I get to really focus on what's stressing me out, what needs to get done, and what I need to do to fix it. It also helped me realize like your program, to eat better, right? To take better care of myself, drink more water, because before it's like, you want to be on the go, but you're not realizing like caffeine, not just coffee, but caffeine and soda all day. Yeah, that's not going to really help my heart palpitations.
Exactly.
So it really helped in all aspects.
Wow.
Like health, mentally, physically, emotionally, it really helped.
Is there anything that you mentioned a couple of things, I guess, but is there anything that you were able to do now that you couldn't do before?
Yeah, I couldn't drive. I couldn't go to family events. I couldn't go to any parties. I couldn't go to concerts. I couldn't go.
You went to your
outside.
Your brother's wedding, if I remember correctly, right?
I did. Yeah, I drove. and went over the bridge. And it's funny because now, like, if I go anywhere, I'm in Rhode Island, so there's bridges everywhere.
Mhm.
Just Saturday, just driving, and I went over a bridge, and I was totally fine with it. It's insane.
What's something, is there something you recently did, recently accomplished or did that you thought you could never do again back in August of last year?
Oh yeah, just drive by myself to a family event. Drive with just myself and my kids to a family event. My nephew did his like first communion. Um, so yeah, just drove just me and myself, me, my children and myself to the church, back home to the reception, back home. I If you told me last year that I would be doing that by myself without a safety person next to me, I would have said, no, that's not going to happen. But I mean, it was just me and my children.
Yes.
I didn't think I would ever be able to do that. And it's
What
funny because even my kids noticed. They're like, Mom, no one is coming with us? I'm like, no, it's just us. They're so used to having another adult who was my safety person.
This is beautiful. This is also you showing to your kids what you said before. You don't want to be the mom that, and there's nothing wrong with it. If you're watching this and
No, it's
do that,
not.
we'll go through this, but it's eventually finding, and this is a part of the program as well, finding your why and having that as a reason why you want to recover is brilliant, because you can challenge that, not to beat yourself up to say like I'm a bad mom. You aren't. You're
No.
like like incredibly courageous mom if you go through this and be a mom. Like that is like I'm not a mom. I just went through this. I know how hard it is. But if you on top of that also take care of another living being, that is
Yeah.
like one of the most. But you got to challenge that as a why, as a reason why you push through setbacks. 2.5 weeks you went through, but you kept on going. You kept on going. You
Yeah.
use reasons why. But so that's so well done. I wanted to touch on one more thing, but I forgot just just now. Ask about the fear of driving. Just quickly, I'm conscious of time, but um, was it the driving itself you feel, or was it more like the symptoms you got while?
Symptoms.
Yeah.
It was the symptoms while driving. So the fear that I had in my head was if I had a panic attack and I passed out while I'm driving in a car, either by myself or with just my children,
Yes.
that would be a nightmare. So I had to have either a safety person as meaning like an adult who could drive
Yeah. Would take
with
over. Yeah.
with me. So if I passed out or if I had a heart attack or every other crazy scenario that I played in my head were to happen, I was prepared.
And now, just a quick thing. Now you were taking your anxiety monster with you, I'm guessing. Well, when you were in the recovery journey, right? You created the anxiety monster. This is also something I want to just to quickly tell people is that we've got this assignment in the program where you create a monster where you give anxiety a little name, which
It's
tends
fun.
to it's fun, and it tends to help with having acceptance more practically. And you say, "Let's go, Jerry. We'll go on a drive and we'll go across the bridge. I know you don't like it, but I'm the adult. I know we're safe in the end because I've learned X, Y, Z. I know how the body works." And but you said about the driving. Just anyone listening, I know there's lots of people with fear of driving. It's not always, and likely isn't necessarily about the driving itself, because people are like, I used to be able to drive and this and this and that, unless maybe if you've been in an accident, yes, it might be related to some real events that used to happen, which can trigger symptoms, which makes it even feel like you're going to get into another accident. So then the normal exposure would really help. Just do it. But it's not just about doing it without a clear plan. We've got to know how to respond. The 5 steps, how to respond correctly to anxiety, and then go driving, or at least not necessarily go driving, but just sit with the symptoms if it shows up at a different event, different place, and apply the 5 steps, showing yourself that the symptoms diminish, that you can go through this, and then doing it while driving, crossing a bridge, going on the highway, and seeing that the symptoms actually die down, and that you don't pass out, die, faint while driving, because all these things, yes, it feels like as if you are. So I just wanted to have asked that question, because it's beautiful that you've went through that as well. I think the fear of driving, which is, I know I've used to have it a little bit as well. I know it's tough.
What I did too, what I find could be helpful to anyone, especially when it comes to driving, is I didn't just do the exposures. I actually gave myself 10 minutes, 15 minutes a day where I went driving by myself. I made it a point. So that way every day I have to leave and I had to drive. So I had my parents just watch the kids, just, I live next door to them. So it was convenient when they're in the country. And I would go 10 to 15 minutes and I would drive. And that's when I would go where I felt comfortable, turn around a little bit, go back, went a little bit further, came back. So I did it in like little chunks to the point that like I'm able to get on the highway and take the exit to get off. So it's not just doing the exposure and like, okay, I did it. It's keeping up with it too. Giving yourself, at least if it's driving or whatever it is, I feel like the more you practice and the more you set that time away to face it, the easier and easier it gets.
Yeah, because when you practice it while driving, it also helps in the grocery store because it's the same, like
Right.
even though the story might be different, you might not say what if I faint, but you might say what if I vomit I'm making this up, but what if I'm vomit in the grocery store? The symptoms, the response is the same. So wherever you want to practice it in exposure, if you focus on using the right response, not just face. Right. This isn't a phobia. It's not like fear of dogs where we just have to sit with dogs. No, we gotta correctly and train that. And it's beautiful that you've been able to do it, and it's beautiful that you did it so consistently as well. And I hope
I thought it was important.
We're also focused on celebrating when we do. So when we go out and do exposure, we really want to make sure, even though you may have forgotten the step, even though you may not have gone the way you wanted, you always kind of like celebrate, like I did this, pat on the back, whatever, just for our brains to want to be doing more of these. And Stefanie's the brilliant example of it because she did it every day. And then now is obviously at a completely different place. So Stefanie, what would you tell someone who's watching this right now and someone who's unsure about taking the next step, whether that is just getting signed up, whether it is to move from, learning the foundation in the mini course to the full program, the 16-week one, the one that you did as well? What would you say to someone that's unsure about? Because that makes sense if you're skeptical, right?
Oh yeah. I mean, I was too. I was like, another program that I'm going to pay for. And what's going to happen? I'm probably going to get the same information that I'm getting from everywhere else, and nothing is going to work. But this is honestly like, I don't know how else to say it. It's a different program because it really is like step by step. And every step that you possibly need, you cover everything. So I would say you do a lot of like mini courses, and all of your ads are really, it's very informative and educational. It's so worth it. And again, it's not about the money. I don't think it ever was about the money for you. Where a lot of the other ones, and now these ads, right? Because the algorithm starts kicking in. So you get other ads for different things. And now looking at it, just knowing from your program versus, what else is out there, I can tell, like, this is a money grab. This is not here to truly help us. For you, it was never about the money. I would say it's a small investment. It really is. And it literally changed my life. Like, you have no idea how much you changed my life. I told my sister, this one, I would have paid $3,000. Knowing what I know now and how much it changed me, yes, I would have paid it.
What do you think, besides the money, is what are things that make this program different from other approaches, would you say?
The results. It's the results that I got. I mean, you're talking about, I didn't leave the house. I couldn't leave the house, but no one else could leave their house either because everyone had to be around in case I needed them. I mean, that put a lot of strain on family, friends, on a lot of people. How do I put a price on that? You know what I mean?
Sure. And is there any advice? I would advice sounds way too formal, I guess, but is there any supportive message you want to give to someone listening who's struggling? If you remember, August last year, what would you say that you know from experience now?
I thought it was impossible not to be healed, like just to feel normal again. But it really is. It's going to be super hard. It's not going to be fun to push yourself. It's not going to be fun to feel all the symptoms. And you're going to doubt yourself a lot. You're going to doubt if this will ever get better. But I promise you, if you just stick through the program, you're consistent with it. Not saying, 1 week today and then don't go back in the program to do week 2 weeks from now. No, stay consistent with the program. There's a reason why it's built that way, is because we need to take each week in its week and do what we're supposed to do. If you retain the information and remember the steps and use what works for you, I promise you're gonna look back like I still do and be like, wow, I was bad, but how did I get here? You really are gonna notice that it was so worth it. It was so hard. I never used to cry during panic attacks, but it was at the point that I was crying, getting all new symptoms, but I knew I had to do it. That was the only way. I put myself here. I can train my brain to not be here anymore. And I honestly didn't think that was even possible.
What excites you most about your future now that you know how to respond correctly to anxiety?
Oh, I'm planning trips. I'm finding more time for myself, because a lot of that was me not wanting to be by myself. Now I enjoy time with myself, to go do things, to do things for myself, to self-care, go out, and just things that freaked me out. The normal things that I felt like is a part of life would have freaked me out, like going out to dinner. Like, I didn't like having so many people around, or, driving because I'm at a red light or stuck in traffic. It's all these little things. Like, I don't think about it anymore. If I have to go somewhere, I just go. I want to go do dinner, I'll go. I'll just go wherever I want now. Where before, no, it freaked me out. Just the thought of going somewhere or doing something would freak me out immediately. And now I'm just like, all right, cool. Like, now I'm excited for it. Family, friends, they invite me to like events or parties or, networking. And I'm like, hey, I'm not going. But now I'm like, yeah, sign me up. Let's go. All right. When are we going? Cool. And I'm excited to go.
Beautiful.
So,
I'm so proud of you.
Thank you. I couldn't do it without you, though.
It's been a real pleasure to guide you through this journey. The last part of this journey, at least from when you signed up, you obviously tried lots of different things, and you've shown incredible motivation, took action. But it's been a pleasure to watch you, and now come to this point where I hear you say, you're focusing on life. You're excited to go to dinner. You're excited to do life, to live again, because that is the goal of the program. It's not to deal with anxiety. It's not to, it's not even to be okay with anxiety. That's how it is the goal, but it's how we get to the goal of life. You do what excites you, and I hope you don't do too much of what don't excite you. We all try to limit.
Right.
We have to do stuff we don't like, but and we get back to the person we were, but now, with this newfound kind of confidence in yourself, trust in your body, potentially, that you got back, and also a broader kind of sense in terms of you can now help people. You've done that. You've helped others to do this, and you're still actually you're giving back as well in a huge way. So thank you so much, Stefanie, today for taking the time. I'm sure this very helpful for people watching.
I hope so.
We'll probably see you around in the community, not as much potentially because you're very busy, I know. But I want to thank you, and thank you for taking the time. Appreciate it.